Live. Hey, we are live. Welcome everybody to another Wine and Comics pairing show. Give me 1 second while I click over to Instagram and get that started as well. Boom. We are live everywhere. And with us today, one last time, everybody who's coming on in these final live streams, it is for one last time. But we will introduce them right after our snazzy opening. You only get to hear this opening 3 more times. Then you gotta you can watch reruns. But anyway, here we go. Last of the live, 3 times opening. Here we go. And I'm not gonna lie, that is actually we're keeping we're keeping that music for the new version of this show that's coming up. It's going to be ever so slightly changed a little bit, and we have the whole outro that's going to happen. No one's ever heard the rest of the song, and it actually does keep going for a little while. So you're going to hear some more of it, and it even gets more like woo, and a few more instruments kind of join in, and you're like, hey, this is fun.
It's a fun song. I like it.
It is a fun song. I like it too. I don't know. Did I ever? I don't know. I've mentioned this.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well. Oh, no problem. I don't think I've mentioned it to you two before. I've mentioned this on a couple previous shows, but since these are the final shows, I might as well mention it one last time. But when I was first putting the show together, I had been searching for whatever, it's a wine show, and I was like, oh, I want some classic acoustic guitar and like some nice little gentle strumming or something, like this nice little gentle opening. And everyone I played it for were just like, don't you want something with like a little more, I don't know, life to it? Like you wanna put a little energy in it? And I was like, oh, really? And then I stumbled across this motherfucker, and I was just like, the moment I heard it, I was like, oh God, I think I love it. Maybe I'm an idiot though. Maybe this is too much. And everyone I played it for burst out laughing the moment they heard it. Yeah. And I was just like, all right, sold.
It's perfect because wine on the one hand has this reputation as being like very sophisticated, a little bit above everybody else's pay grade. And comics on the other hand have this reputation as being like, a lowbrow form of entertainment from way back in the day when that's what they were considered. And so you're bringing these two things together, and you got to let them meet in the middle a little bit. A little fun, a little fancy, and really accessible.
It's fun, yes. But I will say it's funny that comics are kind of like, I guess, not sophisticated, and wine is sophisticated. But meanwhile, comics keep you reading, and wine gets you drunk. So like. It's kind of funny. I'm just saying,
Yes,
it is.
But it
is. There's like a yin yang to the pairing,
Well, and I think when it comes to wine, for me at the very least, it's low enough alcohol that you can ride the wave a lot easier than other alcohols, like right on that tipping point, and kind of keep yourself in that zone where you're having a little more fun reading than you were before. Right. But you're not going over that edge where you're like, I don't remember what I'm reading anymore, and you're just like, what's happened? Oh, this is crazy. But it's like it doesn't go that far, and it's really easy to ride that wave versus everything else outside. Maybe beer has low enough, but I've never been a beer drinker, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So let me introduce you two, because just in case anyone needs an introduction, we have Jayel and Lynsey of Oneshi Press, and we are here today to talk about, I'm going to share my screen ever so briefly because I could not get this image prepped in time without actually sharing the screen, but we are here to talk about boom, Mr. Guy Zombie Hunter, the conclusion of their trilogy of art-thologies. Lynsey and Jayel, please tell us, what is an art-thology?
Well, I mean, really, it's an anthology, but it's not separate writers. It's just separate artists. So, I feel like a lot of times with anthologies, you have like different writers, even different vignettes, stories that are kind of disconnected. And so my thought with this was, I mean, Mr. Guy is a character I've been drawing since I was like 12. So I wanted to write it, but I thought it'd be really cool just to see each chapter done by a different artist, since each chapter is kind of lampooning a different zombie apocalypse trope.
Right.
So I thought, if I could find artists whose styles really work well for that particular chapter, it would be really fun. And so far I've got really good feedback on it. It's a tough sell though.
Is it a tough sell? Like, not the arthology part of it, but just the Mr. Guy as a concept.
So I think the idea of an anthology about a character that isn't like, some huge zeitgeist public domain known entity.
Call it what it is, IP.
Yeah, right? Like, if it's a huge IP that like I didn't have to create and it already comes with a fandom of like millions of people, it does make my life a lot easier. But because Mr. Guy is this exceptionally unique and weird and fun, nuanced creature, he's a character that just delivers and delivers things that you're like, "Why I did not see that coming." He's really different. But the hard thing is, how do you gain people's trust about something that's different, that they don't know if they're going to like, and it will cost them money to find out,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, but the arthology term is what we came up with because it's not what you generally expect from an anthology, because it's
Correct.
one continuous story, but the art is what's changing. So arthology made sense to us. We like it.
just like portmanteaus,
Right.
Like, if we can take two
Right.
words and just smash them into each other, we will
We
every
get
time.
a big kick out
Right.
of it.
In fact, there's
Absolutely.
probably a
Well,
lot
I
of
do think
portmanteaus in the book.
yes, I mean, you define it right up front in the first and arthology, because you wanted to call it an arthology, and you're like, first, let us define portmanteau,
Right.
and then let me define arthology, and now you know what a portmanteau is. So hey, here we go.
Hey, bonus, right? It's education.
I will say, I do think this concept is gaining traction. Like, you have things like, the Cthulhu anthology, or Cthulhu Invades anthologies, right? And I've noticed that idea of sort of a narrative thread running through an entire quote unquote anthology. That actually turned me back onto anthologies when I was pretty what's the word, not jaded with anthologies, but
Kinda
I
done with
was
them.
just a little, yeah, I totally get why anthologies, it's kind of like going to a short film festival, right? It's like it
Yeah.
serves such an important purpose to the industry and to the creators. Like, they can expose their work to you, and your commitment
Sure.
to it is very minimal, because you're like, here's 8 pages of something. That's all I'm asking. That, like, yes, it's part of this huge fat ass 200, probably 100 to 200 plus page anthology, but my part is very small. But in the same, similarly, like, if you go to a short film festival, the problem is you do have to stay there like all day or all weekend or whatever run long, like, to keep seeing what everyone's stuff is, and so it's still a commitment one way or the other. And for me, I always wanted I'm like, well, I want to commit to a story, like something more than 8 pages. Like, that can be hard to convince myself it's worth 28-page stories versus one giant 120-page story. Like, how do I, like, so I was definitely kind of waning on anthologies, and then these, what you call an arthology, started to become popular, and that intrigued me enough. I was like, ooh, okay, maybe I need to come back and actually, like, take a look at this. And some of them will even change the writers between stories. There's just sort of an editor overseeing, the arc, and making sure that it's all going to tie together, but then everyone gets to try their hand on a little bit of something. It's funny, I remember, if you go back to novels, in genre fiction, especially like sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, back to like the 60s and 70s, I think even before, but if you were a new author, they would not publish a 500-page book of yours or 600-page book of yours, because they were like, no one's going to commit to reading 600 pages of someone they've never read before, which blew my mind. I was like, I never thought of that before. But that's why, if you go back in time, every fantasy was a trilogy of 200-page novels, right? And so, because that was a 600-page novel, that the publisher was like, hell no, we cannot publish this to 600 pages. Like, but we will call it a trilogy. You got to rename them and like find the right breaking points, and we will roughly 150 to maybe 250-ish grand max. Like, we'll split it up into these bits, sometimes duologies, because it was only a 400-page novel or something. But that's why duologies and trilogies were so, like, you cannot find genre novels from that era unless you were already an established author like Isaac Asimov or someone, where it's like you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Well, and you know, the publishers really built up big names in those genres because they were like, all right, like a lot of the time they would even start smaller, like more bite size, with like publishing stories serially in magazines.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
And in short story collections. And once you like prove yourself with the magazine circuit, then a publisher might take a chance on your trilogy. But like they really put a lot of time and energy into cultivating these big names. So you ended up with like Philip K. Dick and Isaac Asimov and Heinlein, you know, all of those guys who are still huge to this day because they produced such an enormous amount of work, but it was built on little pieces.
Yep. Yeah, I have a novel back on somewhere in here, and I'm trying to. I think it's called Dragonfly, and it was this author. He was fairly big, but it was one of his early novels, and it was just like you said. He serialized it in magazine format initially, and even then had to chop whole chunks out of it to make it short enough for the serialization not to just go on forever. And the edition I have on my shelf here was something he was able to release in like the late 80s or early 90s, long after that time. And it was finally, he put everything back into it. And it was finally like the uncut version. And I think he even changed, like Dragonfly is the original title, then they called it something else, chopped it in pieces and shortened it, and this was all together, the whole thing and its original title. Finally, here's the edition. And I was like, dude,
that's like the I've never even collection.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where I'm like, I've never even heard of this book, but that's so cool. I want to own a copy of this, so when I read it, this is the edition that I get to read. So there's fun things like that, but yeah, I think things like an anthology, like and anthologies, like, again, I get it. It's really smart. I'm a weirdo that if a book is over 1,000 pages, I'm like, fuck, I need to read it now. Like, how does someone do 1,000+ pages on something? And everyone else, of course,
great in the apocalypse because you're going to be able to build a house out of all your giant bricks of books.
Yeah. Yeah, I have like 3 different tomes behind me that are over 1,000 pages each. One of them by an author I'd never heard of. One is Alan Moore, so of course it's fucking Alan Moore, and it's that Jerusalem novel that he did not too long ago, just a couple of years back or something, which I'm so looking forward to finally plowing into. But they are daunting. Which is part of the problem, is like once you start it, you know that's what you're reading for a while. So you're like, do I want to do that, or do I want to read 4 other books in the same amount of time? Right?
It's a serious commitment. You know,
actually, our most recent like big reading commitment was during the pandemic. We were like, binge watching shows like everybody else, and then one night the electricity went out, and we were like, oh god, what are we gonna do? So I went over to the bookshelf and I got this giant tome that I'd just been sitting on for ages, and it's the complete fiction of Lovecraft. Ooh, and we sat down and just started reading. And Lovecraft is another one who started by serially publishing and doing short stories in magazines, mostly in Strange Tales. So it took forever to get through that book because there's so many stories, and we'd read like 1 or maybe 2 a night if they're very short. But we did during the pandemic get through all of Lovecraft's fiction. And I will say,
that's awesome.
Genius, brilliant guy, not actually that good of a writer, more of an idea person. Also,
well, he was a one-trick pony, right? That was kind of his problem, or at least for me. You can tell me what you thought of all these stories altogether. But I have a book. I don't think it's everything, but it's a curated collection, but it's still fucking massive. And I had to keep taking breaks because of the monotony. Of like, his stories were very like, this is what I write and what I do, with ever slight tweaks. If you want to call him an auteur, if there's such a thing as an author, where it's like, I have one style, I have one thing, and I just do that over and over and over again.
the one thing that he's always saying in every story is that it was so terrible that he
I
couldn't
can't describe it.
possibly describe it. And it's like, well,
Dude,
try.
you're a writer,
Right.
man. Use some words, you know?
Right.
Give it a shot,
Right.
man.
Right.
And then he was like, no, instead I will say terrible racist things because
Yeah,
that's what
he
people
gets
want to
real
read. It's like,
descriptive with his
that,
racism.
well, unfortunately,
But
that
not
really
with
was
his
what people
art,
wanted to read
you
back
know?
then.
you actually do see a little bit of like a readjustment. Like he clearly either rethought his views on some of those issues or his editor was like, you got
No,
stop.
that happened. His editor
Um,
was like, dude, what are you like? You need to stop or we're not publishing you anymore. He
Oh, good.
actually got a
Good.
letter. And people were always
Nice.
like, oh, he was a product of his time. It's
like
like,
no, he went way above.
nah,
Even then,
even
yeah.
at his even in his day, he was getting yelled at for being such a bigot. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was not a product.
Yeah.
So you know that's bad. That's how
Yeah.
far his bigotry. Because there were things that we would call bigotry, racism, or a racist worldview or mindset now that people just weren't even aware to consider as
Sure.
part of that back
Right.
then.
And some of that
But-
you sort of expect to see in a lot of writing from that time because of the time.
Right,
But he really,
right.
he was like, it's not enough to just drop that little tidbit. I need to go
I'm
into
gonna keep
detail.
going. Yeah.
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Let me
cool,
drive.
but
Let me
you can't
drive this
describe
home in
the
case
theme
anyone
for
missed
us?
it.
Come on.
All that being said, though, despite his many, many shortcomings, he did tap into something really
Mhm.
primally upsetting
Yeah.
that has stood
We're
the
still
test
talking
of
about him.
time.
So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And I think you say I think the one trick pony thing about that existential dread that is indescribable might be that might not be his problem. That might be the reason why we're still talking about him. Is because he had that one trick. If he didn't have that one trick, what would we be talking about? How wonderfully
Right.
prattling his prose are? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. It is trying. And there were some that worked better than others, like in terms of like a lot of people swear by The Color Out of Space for the very reason that it was such a weird idea that that indescribableness just really clicked with it, where you're just like, okay, in this story, that being indescribable, although I feel like he tried more in that one than others, which was interesting, even though, that was later, I think, a bit later in his career.
Of some of those ideas really does work because you can sort of overlay whatever your horror fest inside of you is, and that can really work. But sometimes he's like, there was this monster, and I can't tell you what it looked like, and it's like,
I would go
building
mad
up to this
if
moment.
I were to think about it.
I would go mad.
Story.
Yes. Right.
That's what he always says. I would go mad if I were to conjure its image in my mind to describe it.
I know, and it's like, but you looked at it. You can conjure the image in your mind plainly, asshole. Like, come on.
Right.
Try.
So
that train has left the station.
In Mr. Guy, when we meet Lovecraft,
yes.
He is immediately called out for all of this in like just little sassy snippets from Spooky. Man, I'm really on an alliteration roll, huh?
Well, Spooky's a good alliteration daughter.
Yeah. So we definitely do play with some of his creations for his contributions to the zeitgeist, but we also do make sure to be like, hey, we're aware that this guy deserves to have a slug tail covered in butts for the rest of eternity.
Covered in butts.
For being a racist.
So many butts.
That's his punishment,
Mr.
Guy.
I hope he takes it as a huge punishment. Is there a Lovecraftian butt thing that I'm unaware of in specific?
No,
it's
just like existential, indescribable dread. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put a face to it.
I do feel like a good number of his monsters are covered in like weird stuff, like a Shoggoth or however you pronounce that is like covered in eyeballs or whatever. So it was sort of fitting, but mostly it was just funny.
Funny and not too grotesque. Like you walk that line, I think, in Mr. Guy, where you're sort of like, this is not hard R for anybody out there. Come on.
Yeah, it hardly. I think Castle Bigmark, that one chapter, there's a little bit of gratuitous comic book gore. I mean, it's
some definite gore in Act 1 generally.
Yeah, it's pretty tame though, I think.
I mean, it's all very comic booky and cartoonish, which helps it, go down a little
Yeah,
easier.
that's the thing. It's the cartoonishness of it,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah,
almost slapstick with a lot of goo.
But Castle Big Mart is like the most beautifully rendered gore I've ever seen.
That's true.
Like the lighting is perfect, like glinting off of the guts.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. All right, I have a lot of questions for Mr. Guy about that, but let's just catch up with the chat real quick. Who do we have with us here today? We have Aaron Cooper in the house. We have Yuki Dog Zombie in the house. And then commenting on Aaron says, same. I still haven't made it all the way through my book of Lovecraft stories.
Yeah,
and then we have Yuki. I read a few books around the same time, so I'll read a bit of one day and the other the next day. Though some books I reread a lot, and then 100%.
100%.
Oh, and I only know Cthulhu from the books Global Web. Icon C is for Cthulhu, yes. Ananeshi Press's Coffee Cthulhu Comics. Well, you know what? You don't need to know more about Cthulhu, really. I mean, Cthulhu is one of those names, like talking about IPs, right? Where it's like it's public domain. It's basically become an IP. That is not, when you read the original stories, especially the original stories that actually mention that creature specifically, there's not much there. I mean, it's like, it's just, it is what it is. It's Cthulhu, it's Lovecraftian. We've been inundated with enough Lovecraftian stuff that you have a better grip on all the things of what Lovecraft's legacy is in terms of style and aesthetic and these creatures. Reading his stories is interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's worth doing. I don't know about reading all of them. I mean, it's a slog.
Probably not.
as we've both all kind of agreed. If you try and do them all, they're the same story with ever so slight tweaks to it. So you kind of like read a handful, and you've read them all, and you're good to go. And come back to us, and don't keep going down the Lovecraft rabbit hole. So for Mr. Guy, you mentioned this was a character from when you were around 12. And the one thing that definitely reads from that age is the almost action figure quality once he gets his arm, right? So it's like he gets zombie bite on his arm, and he's what is he, a goblin?
Half-goblin.
Half-goblin. He's a half-goblin, and he gets a bite on his arm from a zombie. This is a zombie apocalypse going on in this world/universe. And then that arm gets haunted or infested or however inhabited by the undead spirit of the zombie that bit him. So then it goes into his arm, and his arm becomes this crazy, sort of doesn't atrophy. It changes look and texture and shape and gets kind of big, like a big hero arm on a figure where it's like you have one normal arm, but then you have that one arm that can do everything and has all the special powers and all that fun stuff. So you've got that arm, and it's like
every 90s anime ever has a hero with like the one arm,
the one arm. Yeah, the leg, the something that is like the extension of all that power and the visual symbol of that power of whatever it is. The Full Metal Alchemist with his metal arm, right? That kind of thing. It's like perfect for that. So it's perfectly it's made for an action figure. Do you have an action figure?
We might have a mini in the works. We did have a custom Funko made for the last campaign.
That was cute.
And I don't have images of the mini itself, but I do actually have images of the 3D model. They're pretty cool. And we'll be talking more about that in the time to come on the campaign. We're hoping to unlock that as a stretch goal.
Yeah.
So
it would be really fun to get like a line of action figures. Like you can get standard like pre-bite Mr. Guy is like the boring cheap one, but there's a ton of them.
The boring cheap one.
And then like as his arm develops and like gets bigger and nastier, they get more limited edition and more expensive.
Probably
business brain right here.
You just pop off the arm and pop on a different one. That's how they do it.
There you go. Accessories.
That's I'm into it.
That too. Either way. She's like, whole new figures, damn it. Whole new figures. That's where the
Like,
money
over
is.
here getting all Machiavellian with it, but all right. Whatever.
So my question for you though, so you came up with this character when you were 12. What was the concept, and was there a story behind this character for that 12-year-old version?
It was a rather abstract doodle, the first drawing. And it got less and less abstract. You know, maybe I was 14, maybe 12 was a
Okay.
stretch, but it was definitely like, you know, childhood. Like I was a
Right,
kid,
right.
you know.
Right.
And, you know, I just kept kind of sticking with him. I tried to insert him into a couple different stories I was working on, and he didn't really find a home, and he was kind of bopping around. And then it was like, well, maybe that's his own story, you know? And
Bopping
so, yeah.
Right.
And, you know, I tried to think about like, well, what kind of world is he in? What kind of zombie apocalypse is this? What are the rules? What are the, you know, what's the world
Mhm.
building? And then I was like, you know what? It's a fantasy world, so he can be whatever, right? He's already a half-goblin, so he's got to be in a fantasy world.
Mhm.
And that was part of the original character design.
I like that it took you that long to figure that part out. It's like, oh right,
Well,
goblin. Shit.
I mean, and then it
I mean,
was like,
believe me,
well,
the ideas
yeah,
I had as a
no,
kid
no, it
made
was
no
like,
fucking sense. So
right.
that's
And
not
then
a judgment. I just love it.
He's judging you.
Kid brain, you know? And then I guess it was like, well, you know, I got to pick some kind of zombie apocalypse. So I started playing with different ideas, and I was like, well, what if that's the joke, is that he doesn't know, you know? And so then I started developing that. And I think my first attempt at actually drawing it traditionally as a graphic novel was in like, I want to say like 2004.
Okay.
And I still have that actually. It's not good, but a lot of the story
Well, I was
is
going to
still the
say
same. A
we're
lot
not
of the
reading it
character
right now,
design
so
is still the
plainly.
same, you know. But I redid it. I picked it up again in what, 2018, I think, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And you know, it was just a lot of fun to bring that back, and to, you know, sometimes like honoring our youth, our childish ideas and things like that by
Oh yeah.
rehashing them can be a really good source of inspiration. You know?
Yeah. And Mr.
Yeah.
Guy, I think, really, like, the story leans into that sort of like childlike wonder almost, because we get to like visit a
Uh-huh.
lot of pop culture touchstones that were
Yes.
inspirational along the
Yes.
way.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say roam. You get to roam through all these different things that were
Yeah.
so formative for
Yeah.
most of us. Yeah, leading up to this point. And you know, I think there's a thing to I'm not gonna remember where this. I'm gonna be paraphrasing a quote here, and I can't even remember where the quote is freaking from, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And it is that thing where doing something like this, when you have an idea or a character or something inside, like you've come up with that idea, it's plainly inside you, like it keeps coming back, right? It keeps resurfacing,
Yeah.
you keep trying to do something with it, or thinking about it, or revisiting it. And doing something officially like this with it is like, it is in many ways like, I need to get this out from the inside, and like
Absolutely.
then I get to move on, you know,
Yeah.
because I finally done it. I finally expressed it in a way that I'm like, okay, yes, that I'm free. Like, my
You know, and
14-year-old self is finally, and not that it's with you as the thing from that point
Right.
forward, but you're free from it as the untapped idea that has just been journeying with you all this way. And who knows, you
Yeah.
might come back to it someday.
Yeah, but like it frees up some mental space and some creative space to work on something else.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I detected a hint there from Lynsey where she's like, Jayel, you need to do something with this so we can move on.
No, not really. I mean, because Mr. Guy could have been one of those characters that sort of like hangs around the periphery of our other work, like
Right.
Catfish, who's in the
Mhm.
intros of the Mr.
Yep.
Guy books. Like he's another really old character of Jayel's that just is kind of around. And Mr. Guy could have taken on a similar role to that, but instead he gets his own story. And I really think that a lot of what we do at Oneshi Press is very much like doing its own thing. You know, obviously we have influences and we have inspirations and we have things that we're, you know, I don't know, building on. But most of our series are very kind of out there, kind of doing their own thing. And I think that Mr. Guy is doing like, it is doing its own thing in the arthology way. And in, you know, this is just, you know, some rando character that people don't know, but he's also like lovingly passing through all of these worlds that are homages to the shows and the movies and the games and the things that we grew up on. So in a way, like it's kind of the most accessible maybe of our work, while also like being completely its own thing. And
I can see that.
Getting it really can get you like a little bit in the feels. I'm thinking of a few moments, especially in the new one, which is the one that we're kickstarting right now,
Right.
that are very clearly like paying homage to some of our favorite like sci-fi properties. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of sweet. It feels nice.
And you know, the hope is it's like in kind of digging for that joy, those moments of joy in my life. Like, you know, think about, I don't know, maybe some time where like you saw a great movie in the theater with someone and had a great time, and like it's such a classic movie and you're like, wow, it's so cool that I saw such a classic movie in the theaters with my bud or my, you know, sibling or whatever. Like those moments that kind of define parts of our imagination from that point forward are really important, I think, to honor and to share, you know, to share that with other people, because, you know, I'm probably not the only one that had that moment watching whatever, you know, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Predator or, you know what I mean? The Matrix, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
It's interesting.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic
you know?
Park. Yeah, that's another one. It's interesting because I think there's definitely a generational divide in terms of the differences in how we've consumed pop culture from our generations to the latest generations, where, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, there was just such a curation of what everyone got to see and what actually made it out there. So we were all watching the same shit, like always. Like there was no question. It's like we all saw it, we all knew of it, like, and we knew, you know, there. I think there was a quote from director Jim Jarmusch recently where he was shitting on Star Wars, but he had this great quote where he was like, "I resent its cultural influence. I've never seen any of them, and I know everything about them." And he was pissed about that. But I was like, yes, see, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Where whether you love it or hate it, it's like whether you've seen it or not, you kind of know everything. Like you can have a conversation about it. You might not be able to like pick it apart because you haven't seen the nitty gritty, but you can talk about what it is and the influence it's had on pop culture, and, you know, what Terminator did to sci-fi, what Alien did to horror, what, you know, Jurassic Park did for adventure and special effects, and what Independence Day did, and for better or for worse, for special effects, you know, things like that. It's like we can all talk about these things because they were all such cultural flashpoints. And every summer it was the same cultural flashpoints. So we can all talk about them. And now we're so spread thin on content where there's so much, and it's a crapshoot if someone has seen or even really heard about relatively big projects. And so now when we come together, I feel like for the older stuff, we get to share our love because we all experienced it together. And now it's kind of like, who's out there that has seen this thing?
Well, and
Hello.
it's
Yeah.
And you're
broken up
trying to
by
find
who
them.
has what, who has what streaming service, right? Like
Right.
if
Right.
we both
And at
have
what
the same
time?
streaming
Yeah.
service, we might know some of the same shows and movies.
Or who's a
But
Right.
gamer and who's a movie watcher, or who's a
Right.
movie watcher
Right.
who's a TV watcher, who's a
Right.
watcher who's a reader. Like it's all very broken up.
Right.
Um,
It's like my mom could tell you what was on the original Nintendo because she was surrounded by that shit when we were kids. And it's like, but she can tell you what's going on in video games anymore today. And I think even for gamers, it's like what platforms, what kind of
Right.
games,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
depending on what you're into, they suck up so many man hours that you're sort of like, that's what you're playing. And you might not be playing a whole lot of other games that are also out there. And you might even only be tertiarily aware of half the games that are out there anymore. There's just so much. So I feel like the sharing these days is more about finding your cult group
Yeah.
that has watched that thing, or sharing it with a stranger just to expose them to it, because now that's a big thing. Now
Come
that's
over,
something
we're
it's
gonna
like, let me,
watch this.
yeah. And it's like, let me
Just sit
tell
down
you
and shut up,
about
we're
this
doing a
crazy.
binge.
Yeah. And
It's
that's something that the other person would be like, I'm sorry, what's it called? On what service? Like, have I heard of any of this shit? But then you get to share that. But it's like it's a very different kind of sharing compared to this, where I feel like we're us and what are they called? Zillennials. Might be the last generations where it's like this is truly true, like this is true for where we all grew up watching, listening, seeing, playing the same things no matter what. And then
Yeah.
it all starts to diverge and it becomes the more a very different experience.
And you know what's funny? What occurs to me is like a lot of my actual interaction with my favorite properties from when I was a kid these days is in the form of memes. Like people coming up with new takes on the same scene from Lord of the Rings that everybody else has come up with
Right.
a take on, And I get a ton of enjoyment out of that because it's like I am getting that same like hit of the feeling of coming together. Like somebody else gets this joke, but then they brought their own brain to it and it's so fun. But it's harder to have a meme that does well when you don't have as many people that recognize the reference in the meme.
Right.
It's really interesting
Right.
that like that's where we are culturally, is that memes take up so much of our consumption
Yes.
time.
Memes are
they're
starting to
based
become
on
culturally
things that-
specific. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Huh.
my buddy
Yeah.
Adrian,
I
was
can't tell you how
rewatching-
many memes I see these days that I don't get them. I'm like, I see it and I'm like,
But it goes both
keep
ways.
scrolling, keep scrolling.
It
Yeah.
goes both ways because, like, my buddy Adrian was telling me he was rewatching Lord of the Rings with his kid, and the line comes up like, "One does not simply walk into Mordor," and the kid goes, "That's where the ancient meme is from," and Adrian was like, "He's like, I just shriveled up and died right there."
Yep.
I
Yep.
just turned to
Yep.
dust.
Yep. 100%.
This
But yeah,
meme
I think
is almost as old as Elrond himself.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but you always have to remember how old like 30 was when you were like 14. Like
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
that
yeah.
was an obscene age that you could not fathom. You had no life experience to reference that. So you're just like, my God,
I
that
love
was
thinking
before I
about
was
that.
born. It's ancient. Because and that's the thing. Like
In
if you're
that context,
14,
I'm ancient. I am ancient.
yes,
I'm just
you are
ancient to
before
it,
someone was
you know?
born, you're ancient. The end.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
kind of, I think, how it works. So however old you are, you can dial that clock back to around the time you were born, and then everything's just old. Like after that year, that's just sort of how we relate to things. We got a couple things. I do agree. Yuki Dog has been saying a few things. I vote for more Catfish. I agree. Catfish is actually a really cool character. I love the look of Catfish. I love that it keeps changing the room and the person that the Catfish is with at all times, like between the anthologies. And then here's a good example. Out of all the names you name, I have only watched Star Wars and Jurassic Park. So yeah. It's like if you didn't grow up on them, and I'm assuming Yuki, this is like you're probably younger, and so like you're going back and having to catch these things, and so only some of them have you seen, and that's kind of where we all are now, where it's like even though we're all living during the time all this content is coming out. We're all picking and choosing, and we're all picking and choosing differently. And so it's just we're mix and matching, and we might be
And
familiar with
for
some. And
instance, I grew up in a house where like we didn't have cable, we didn't have video game systems, we didn't have like anything. So I only watched what I could get on like the 5 channels, you know, that came very spottily onto our TV. And I lived very far away from a movie theater, so I didn't go to the movies very often. So I missed a lot of pop culture as a kid, and it's only like since I've entered like my mid-20s that I've really started to catch up on a lot of these things. So it used to be that every meme would have just gone straight over my head, but now I get more of them.
Right. That's good.
Meanwhile, conversely, my dad took me to see like Predator 2 in the theaters when it came out. I was watching like Hellraiser in the 80s. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Your dad was like,
no
you'll
filter.
forget, like, you're too young. You'll forget about all of this. I'm just let me just pull you into the theater.
And that's why, to me, it's funny. So that kind of stuff, those images, they come back up when I'm doing things like Mr. Guy, which is like a love letter to my childhood, including all the horror that I watched as a kid. You know,
absolutely, and which stuck with you in all this time.
Totally did.
Oh, sorry, Yuki. I am 32. I just have always hated scary things. So okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. You gotta baby step. You did Jurassic Park. That's a good one. Because that's half scary, right? It's like thriller, adventure, scary, kind of Indiana Jones Temple of Doom scary.
Yeah. I think the scariest creature for me in all of Jurassic Park is the Scorpius Rex, which is in Camp Cretaceous. It's like
it's a really good show if anyone hasn't watched it.
It's like definitely a militarized weapon. Like they altered its DNA to be like, you know, just a weapon. And I know that's like Yuki's favorite dinosaur. So it just goes to show what one person finds scary, someone else might find awesome and really fun.
And thrilling in a good way, right?
It's not binary.
Yeah.
You know, like we have different tastes, different nopes, different, you know, things that we're into or, you know.
Yeah. And so for Mr. Guy, absolutely. And and yes, Yuki, I love dinosaurs.
We could talk about
it's interesting. I've never been I love Jurassic Park or I love the original. Has there been any that I've loved since? I don't really think so. I've tried. Like number 2 and number 3, I think most people agree were largely misfires. I don't think I have to argue those two too hard, though some people enjoy them. I don't think anyone thinks they're genius. Or anything
actually, I rewatched all of them with Yuki recently, and I found myself enjoying them a lot more than I remembered the first go around. And I think the reason why is because I wanted them to be the first one.
Right, the rep of the first one.
The first one already happened. Yeah. And for me, like I saw the first Jurassic Park in the theater when it came out, and that was like, oh my God, my mind is blown. Like blown. Like what? I walked out of that theater like
none of us had seen anything like it before, right? So
what did I just see? You know, like a world was shattered.
Right.
And so you just can't get that again. Like that toothpaste is out of the tube, the cat's out of the bag, the beans have spilled, you know, like
that sheer sense of wonder is not what you're going to get on a sequel, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just because you've already been introduced to dinosaurs. Now it's like, all right, plot and adventure and things happening with the dinosaurs. Cool. But you'll never get that first introduction again. However, I will say, as like fun action movies, like they're fun. I think that some of the later ones get, I think, more fun as they go.
They kind of start just having fun with what they're doing instead of trying to recreate the
like we just need fun with dinosaurs, right?
Well, and to your point of
I really enjoyed.
And to your point of Mr. Guy and kind of the almost you're having fun with the concept because the concept has been around for so long and people love it and it's a beloved IP. And so like the latest trilogy was, you know, and I think a lot of latest trilogies tend to be this way, a lot of remakes, redos, sequels, prequels, what have you, they're shaping our already existing knowledge and relationships with these IPs and playing with that as much as giving us something new, which is kind of the modern way of doing it, because we finally stopped pretending we didn't know what these IPs were, right? We stopped pretending that it was like, we didn't all grow up with the same fucking thing. So why are we pretending that this is just something completely new out of the blue? Let's just acknowledge it's part of a mega franchise. And then we can unclench and just like have fun with the fact that it's part of a mega franchise. So yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of fun to be had. You know, there's fun to be
Fallen
had.
Kingdom. One of Yuki's favorites. So
yeah,
and that is the latest, right? Yeah.
Yeah, those were fun. The Jurassic World movies did a lot better than they made me a lot happier than I thought they would.
There's some good Jurassic World.
I was very skeptical, but
there's some Jurassic World and Jurassic Park moments in Mr. Guy 3 that we're gonna get to enjoy.
There may or may not be a lot of cheese involved.
They're kind of cheesy.
Beautiful. Oh, so the question that I keep almost asking and then never asking, let me actually ask it this time. So for Mr. Guy, 12 acts. These are the final 4 acts, 4 acts per artthology, essentially. So when you came up, from the looks of it, you had this, like you mentioned all the 12 acts right from artthology number 1. So this was the whole plan. Did you like just map this whole thing out and know exactly what you were going to reference? Did anything change or get tweaked along the way, or has the plan been the plan?
So the outline, I did the outline first, so I knew exactly what themes I was going to play with, and what order they were going to happen in. But, a lot of like the slapstick and a lot of the references, a lot of the Easter eggs, a lot of that stuff is emergent properties that came up while working on it. Sometimes it would be a conversation with me and the artist that would develop the ideas. There's a lot of different ways that like this panel or that panel kind of happened as it was being fleshed out as a fully realized script. And I like to keep a little bit of like room for. So I feel like when I write an entire outline and it's loose but well structured, then when I'm writing, I can like just develop ideas, running gags, motifs, things like that, and not have to worry about the plot because I know the plot already. I already know where the plot is going.
Right.
So
put some like guardrails around it, and it lets you actually explore the territory.
Then you could have a lot of fun with like 5 different details in one panel, and it's like you could look at that panel the first read through and see a joke and be like, I get that. And then like the next time you're reading, you could look and see something different going on in the background and be like, how did I miss that? And that's the kind of humor that I personally love. I really appreciate that. So I love trying to create that for people.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Mr. Guy may be a trilogy, but you can reread each one of these books multiple times and find more Easter eggs each time you go through.
Right. That's cool. I like it when it doesn't call it out, like itself out too much, where it is just like, we put it there, but we're not going out of our way to spotlight it for you. You either pick up on it or you don't, but it's there.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that is also a lot of those Easter eggs are pop culture references, and I know that not everyone's going to get everything, so I try to put in enough of a smattering and a spread that everyone will get something. Like there's at least something for everyone to be like, that's funny, I get that. And at best I do try to make my own running gags that are an inside joke with me and the reader. And Kale just popped in the chat, who actually also helped me with some of the writing on his arc that we worked on in the 3rd act.
Kale may have managed to work in the most incredible hidden joke into the art on his end.
Right.
Oh my god!
I was like,
so good.
slapped. I was slapped in the face when I got it. I was like, what? Oh no!
Beautiful. Well, you heard it here, folks. Maybe not first. I have no idea if it's first, but you heard it here, one way or the other.
So good.
And I will say, I apologize once again to Yuki. I see this shows you which Jurassic Parks I've actually watched, because Fallen Kingdom is the favorite, but World Dominion is the one that came out in 2022. But there's one more coming out next year, and I will freely admit that I've watched the original trilogy, if you want to call it a trilogy. They're barely connected, and then the first of the Chris Pratt Jurassic Parks, and I have not seen number 2 or 3 of that trilogy. So those are the 2 I haven't seen, which is why I couldn't remember the title whatsoever. So yeah. Oh, and we have also the Indoraptor from Jurassic World was great, since they had wanted to do a hybrid raptor since Jurassic Park 2. I did not know that. That's cool to know. Beautiful.
Was it? Yeah, that was on one of your streams, right? Where you were talking about Speed Racer, the movie, and how when it first came out, you didn't like it, right? And then you
kind of
rewatched it, and you were like, "Oh, this is so awesome! Like, how did I not see that the first time?"
That was Dallas.
Okay, Dallas.
I liked it the first time. I was
smart. You liked it the first time. Okay.
But Dallas was the one that he walked out of the theater the first time he tried to watch it.
Right, yeah.
And, yeah. So I might as well, I'll say this right now, and then we'll go take a look at the Kickstarter page together.
Cool.
But so that stream was actually a preview for the podcast, the new show that is replacing this show. It drops tomorrow, is episode 1, which is Speed Racer. If everyone looks in the top right corner of the screen, that is the new logo, Wine and ... That is our new title for the new podcast, because it is Wine and not just comics. It is Wine and movies, TV, books, music, and comics. Everyone guest that comes on gets to pick any and from all those industries we're going to be bringing in to talk to us. So the first guy that chose Speed Racer is a Canadian filmmaker and podcaster, Justin Decloux. He chose Speed Racer as like his gem of a movie that he wanted to talk about. So he came on and talked with us about that. The podcast will exist starting tomorrow, so I can't drop anything. But it will be on this YouTube channel. This YouTube channel is becoming the Wine and channel as well. That podcast will be audio only. The video with us, our talking heads, will only be for short clips on social media. It's the actual show will be audio, just a podcast, but it will be on Apple iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube podcasts, on all the podcast platforms. Is where you're going to be able to find one a week, every week.
Sweet.
And likely 2 a week is what it's really going to become, because when we do TV, we're going to do it episode by episode. And so when we pick a season of TV, it will be once a week as well on Tuesdays, and the main thing on Thursdays. So we can get through a season in like 1 to 2 months, kind of a thing. Or it's a 22 episode season. Well, we're doing it for a quarter of a year.
So are you going to be pairing a different wine with each episode of a series?
Maybe. What part of the discussion will be, has anything changed episode to episode? And what are...
That's a great way
it's
to
like
fitting in.
Is this an episode that was more intense? Or, you know, like back in the day when they used to do the musical episodes of Buffy or something like that, where it's like, you know what? That requires a different pairing. I'm sorry. Like,
So
I'm not
wait,
drinking my
Dave,
usual Buffy
Are
wine
you
with
and
that.
Dallas gonna do a musical?
Episode?
Are you telling me that you and Dallas are gonna sing?
Oh,
I'm here
no. I mean,
I'm here
we both
for it
can.
all day.
So here's the fun part is me and Dallas were both trained as singers in our youth.
Amazing.
So we both did musical theater.
All right, I will start writing music for you right now if you can.
Ooh.
No, I'm kidding. Well, maybe I'm kidding.
No.
So, you know,
I will say, Yuki is revealing. I only watched the anime of Speed Racer. Yuki, you gotta see the movie. It
looks really cool. I want to see it. I haven't seen it.
It was so ahead of its time.
That you just couldn't handle it at the time. Yeah,
we could not. So, one of the things we discussed on the podcast episode is that digital editing was still kind of a new thing. And because it used to be you had to actually put film reels together and put the physical fucking
Cut 'em and
reels,
splice 'em and-
between them. And so you could only do so much with that. And digital editing allowed multiple things to be happening on the screen at the same time,
Yep.
because you could do
So
that
much.
now. But for the most part, even though digital editing had existed for a while before Speed Racer, everyone was still just editing like it was film because no one knew what else to do with it. And Speed Racer, the Wachowskis were like, we're pushing this envelope. And it's an onslaught of information that at the time, I think audiences were like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What am I even looking at? I don't get this.
Yeah.
Right. And nowadays, it's actually pretty par for the course. We're
Right.
used to it now. Even then, though, they did things with green screens and camera array setups in the same way that the Matrix pushed things way in advance of what we thought was possible. Speed Racer pushes it even, like, they were doing techniques that had never been done before. It did melt the audience's brains at the time, no question. But now I think we've watched enough digital and CGI and green screen, and we get it now. Our brains get it. Speed Racer is still a unique experience, but it's not hard. Now it's not difficult anymore. It's just unique, and that's what makes it. And that's why I think it's finding like a whole new audience these days. If you look online, like new generations are like, wait, where did this come from? Why does nobody talk about this movie? It's amazing. And because audiences at the time thought it sucked. But now we're all coming around to it. Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. The way that you put that makes me think like the Matrix did push so much of the technical aspects of filmmaking forward so far, but maybe audiences were like, we were willing to go along for the ride, even though we'd never seen anything like it before, because the story was a mindfuck. They're like, okay, this is going to blow your mind in every possible way. Just buckle up for it. And maybe it made it a little bit easier for people to.
We're going to have to watch it. We're going to find it tonight.
Yeah. The Matrix?
Please do it. Watch it and listen to the podcast. And then, of course, you'll be able to know what we're talking about. And
let's
get right into it.
And then we'll get the wine. And then we'll
I was going to say also, Lynsey writes prose books that we've never approached you with because it was wine and comics. So if you have any interest.
One that I'm working on right now is a musical. Just saying.
The prose book.
Yes, it's not finished yet. I still have to write the music for all of these scenes, but there are musical scenes in the book.
Okay. All right. I am interested. So the way we would do it usually with the podcast is like we would take that book and either me and Dallas without a guest would talk about it on an episode, or we'd find a guest that was interested as well, and we'd all do it together for that. So when you guys come on the podcast, the point is to pick something not yours that you just want to talk about for whatever reason. And of course, we'll plug whatever you have going on. But it's mostly, I feel like people respond, like I want people to, it's not about like, this is my thing. Of course, I want you to read it, but more about like, let's find people that like it and want to talk about it. Exactly. Because it's more of a recommendation that way, right?
Oh, that's
so
fun.
It's more of like So that's going to be, it starts tomorrow, and it's one of the reasons why the live stream does have to end in a couple. We only have 2 more live streams after this one, folks, and then we're putting the live streams to bed because we've got to put all our focus into the new podcast. It is a lot of work. Oh, and I will say, okay, the live action was a lot of fun. I think Speed Racer ran into a common hurdle, to be honest, where general audiences are a bit afraid of sincerity. That too, we talk about that as well. Actually, there's an air of being too cool. So they were with the Matrix, and the full trilogy of that, and sort of they produced V for Vendetta, but didn't direct V for Vendetta. Although the rumor is they kind of ghost directed V for Vendetta.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I hadn't heard that.
It was their close friend and first AD on The Matrix, James Mateague, that directed it. So they were kind of giving him the chance to get his first directorial effort. And probably they were very hands-on because it was his very first. So they were like they were walking him through that. And it's unfortunately, and it's funny, they still work together all the time. Like he is now their second
that's
unit
nice.
director on like all their recent stuff and whatnot. But poor James McTeague, if you ever look at his filmography after V for Vendetta, man, does he have bad choices. Like Ninja Assassin, and then that Edgar Allan Poe movie, Never no, what was the one? It's like John Cusack is Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, I'm gonna forget the title of it. Oh God, you don't remember this?
John Cusack is Edgar Allan. I'm gonna grab.
Does
another
he play the
seltzer.
Raven? Does he stand outside somebody's
Is it
bedroom
just
window
called The Raven? Am I remembering
holding a
this
raven
correctly?
over his head? The Raven's just going, nevermore.
Yeah, maybe it is just called Nevermore. I'm trying to remember now, but it's like it was. They're all like these really like, oh,
Cusack
your
is
heart. No, why? Why did you choose these? They're not working for you.
Oh my God, I have
Oh
to
my
find
goodness.
that. Amazing.
Oh, and I will say, and yes, Yuki, we will do animation. Like when we say TV and movies, animation, live action doesn't matter. It's all fair game. Animation currently is not its own category because it can transverse all the other categories. But yeah, we're not opposed to animation at all. I vote for a podcast episode about Mima and the Circus of Mysteries.
Yeah.
Have I heard of that? That's an anime, right?
No, it's an illustrated novel by Bonnie Watson.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a series. It's a series of illustrated novels. Yeah,
all right. I'm taking a note of that.
Fantastic art. Really cool.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we are here to talk about Mr. Guy. So let's get back to Mr. Guy now that we've had that little bit of an announcement. And let me share my screen. And we're going to go to the Kickstarter page. Where are you? There you are.
All right.
All right. Mr. Guy, Zombie Hunter 1 through 3. Should I play the video? Is it a nice short video?
It's pretty short. It's like
Shortish.
2.5 minutes. I don't know how much time you have.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Nah, I got time. Here we go.
We'll mute our mic so we don't get feedback.
Save himself. He must save us all. Bummer.
Hi, I'm Jayel Draco. I'm the co-founder and lead designer of Oneshi Press, and I'm the writer and creator of Mr. Guy Zombie Hunter.
Hi, I'm Lynsey G. I am the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Oneshi Press, and I am the editor of Mr. Guy Zombie Hunter.
We love zombies, high fantasy, sci-fi, satire, and comics anthologies.
So we're bringing you this excellent anthology trilogy featuring 15 8-page story arcs, each illustrated by a different artist, plus tons of bonus features.
In this trilogy of comics anthologies, our half-goblin, half-pint hero, Mr. Guy, has got to cancel the zombie apocalypse with the help of his spectral sidekick, Spooky.
In order to save himself, he's basically got to save us all, and he's kind of bummed about it.
Your support, this will be our 19th successful Kickstarter campaign.
Kickstarter is the perfect place for an indie comics collaboration like this to find a special place on the shelves and in the hearts of backers like you.
This is your chance to get Mr. Guy Zombie Hunter Acts 1, 2, and 3 in both print and digital, the How To Mr. Guy zine,
The Mr. Guy theme song, and the Trap remix, Mr. Guy stickers and postcards, this amazing color-changing, laser-etched light-up crest, and so much more.
and as we do with every Kickstarter, we'll be planting a tree for every backer through our official partnership with One Tree Planted.
With your support, we're looking forward to smashing through armies of the undead with Mr. Guy and Spooky.
Thank you so much for pre-ordering through Kickstarter. We couldn't do this without you.
So scroll through the Kickstarter campaign and find the reward tier that's right for you.
And you can choose from our fantastic add-ons to make sure you're getting everything you want.
Thank you.
The help of his spectral, spooky sidekicks.
Crap, I forgot what I'm doing.
Red Baron!
Dun, dun, dunzy, dunzy.
Beautiful.
That's a lot
All
of fun.
right. I like the
You know-
dinosaur running through the background.
I mean, we got to pack it in with the humor. I feel like I want people to get a taste of the idea that you don't know what to expect from us and that we're just going to go extra to be funny and weird, you know?
Especially with Mr. Guy.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're about 40% of its goal, but 29 days to go. You launched today? Today.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Our live stream launch party ended 24 hours ago.
Oh yeah.
There you
nice.
go.
Right.
And almost halfway there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
$1, guys. $1 from 1,500. I want to scroll back up here when we're done scrolling down this page, and I want to see 1,500. You can give me $1 on this thing. So let's just get that done, shall we? All right. So let's look on down. So yes, what's Mr. Guy? We basically just heard his story and sort of the evolution of the goblin, I suppose, over here, leading up to a zombie goblin, but then a zombie armed goblin, but not entirely. Oh, that's something I didn't mention. I do love this. I mean, I was scratching my head, but I ultimately decided I loved it when he was like the spooky, the skull that lives in his arm is the undeaded soul of the zombie that bit him. Is like, well, I'm undeaded. Well, I'm undeaded. Your transformation into a zombie is on pause, and so you have until you die personally. Once Mr. Guy dies, then he will become a zombie. But he can undo the zombie apocalypse before he himself dies.
It couldn't be more convoluted.
Yeah.
Right? But
Exactly.
to be fair, this is Mr. Guy's flashback that you got that information.
True.
So we
I didn't think about that.
know if Mr. Guy's memory is like high fidelity or not.
Somehow I think probably not. Just
We do
he's
revisit
not,
it a little bit later.
Mr. Guy may
Right.
not be the most reliable of narrators. I think.
He's a very
Ah.
honest chap, but he's a little goofy, you know?
He's a little goofy, no question. And you're right.
He
Most of it,
honestly
even though that
believes that everything he's saying is true, but that doesn't mean it actually is.
Yeah, he's
Exactly,
not
yeah.
at all like deceitful or dishonest. He's a very honest character.
course.
That's like kind of the fool character, you know,
Right.
like he's just honest and silly and just trips through life and, you know, has an open door policy. There's an open door. I'm going to take it, you
Yep.
know?
Well, and hey, we've all been there where we very sincerely stated something we believe to be true, you know, as just
I'm
like,
sure I do
this,
that regularly.
this is what it is. This is how it happens. And then later had to go through. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes you're not the one who ever has to
Who
deal
knows?
with the after effects of it not actually being true. But then we've all probably experienced that time when we've had to that painful moment where we're like, oh, like I don't
like that.
yeah, and then you're
time
not
that
even sure how you got it
Draco
wrong
was
anymore,
better than
right?
Leo.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Wow, deep cut.
Shots fired. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And as you can see, guys, here's that arm that superhero action figure arm and what it's become here. Oh, it's amazing. And of course, Mr. Spooky, that he can come out and be Mr. Spooky just like that. And sometimes he's in the arm. I think we saw that on the above. Yeah, right. Nope. There's a picture here. Let me see if we'll find a picture.
If you refresh the video, we'll go back to the first frame.
Oh, right,
And the
yeah.
first frame.
Right. Yeah.
Just-
Okay.
that's like-
We'll get there. We'll get there. But yeah, sometimes Spooky is in that arm and you can see his little outline in the arm where he's embedded. But again, action figure thing, you can stick the little skull in the arm and let it be in there. And I'm just like, yes. You know, like a little slot that opens up, you put them in there and you close it. And then,
Yeah.
but even, you know, it still looks like a normal arm. There's so many possibilities back in the day when they made action figures like that. God damn it. All right. We got the Army of Darkness chainsaw.
Yeah,
And act.
you got it,
Suppose
right?
they
It's
did-
like obligatory.
Yep. And Act 1 to save himself. Act 2, the hecking heck of it when he goes to heck and has to go through the mini circles of heck. And Act 3, the last of it. So 60 plus pages, the final 4 arcs. Yeah, this was a beautiful little.
Mm-hmm. I just
So,
love that little
I
triptych.
took a course on the Inferno, and it was an entire semester course specifically just
Mhm.
on that one book, just dissecting the Inferno.
That part of that one book,
Yeah, which is a part of
the Divine
the
Comedy.
Divine Comedy, right? So, yeah, so it was an entire course just on that part, that section of that book, and it's like
Yep.
pretty intense. And one of the things that we were learning about and discussing was that a lot of what Dante put in there was very much contemporary, like commentary.
Mhm.
A lot of it was like political and stuff like that, and it's a lot of like contemporary social commentary, and a lot of it was just his own biases, his own thoughts, and a lot of him just deciding what hell and heaven are should be like based on what he liked and didn't like. So I was kind of
Right.
like, well, I like the aesthetics, of the story, but like some of Dante's views were pretty rough, like pretty rough stuff there. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I was like, let's take that apart. Like this would be really fun to like revisit that and just kind of call out where he's being shitty and call
Right.
out the shittinesses.
Right. Right.
So that's what we do. We take those things like Lovecraft and like Dante, and we're like, there's a lot of cool stuff that has trickled down into our zeitgeist from those source materials, but it's important in our, love of what they've become to also, be able to point out and be like, yeah, but that person was being shitty,
Yep.
and
100%.
separate that and be like, but I still like this aesthetic. I still like these ideas, but not that part of that person's viewpoint. Um, I don't know. That's a whole topic for how people relate to pop culture. Are you allowed to like the work of someone that you don't respect, or you know what I mean? That whole thing.
Mhm.
That's like a
Mhm.
huge can of worms, but we do what we can to toe the line.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I think I mean this is just my own personal like how I approach that thing. I think it's one, it can be very different when that person is long gone because they're no longer financially being rewarded for your liking
Yes,
that thing.
that's a big
Right.
difference.
And that it
Absolutely.
makes a huge, or their estate who might have been covering things up. That's another question is like, is the estate almost as bad or not? That's still a bit of a question. But if not, if it's like enough time has passed that even the estate is like, look, it's like their great grandkids. They weren't like, no one alive had
Yeah.
anything to do with it anymore. Then it's the calculus changes on that. And the work itself, I think sometimes the person is horrible, but the work does not contain that many horrible elements per
Oh,
se.
yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. Or if the work itself can be troubling, all right, call out the troubling bits. But again, I think that's where the education can still be very important because we're learning about people from those time periods, learning about, or just what is the range of human types and mindsets and global world and worldviews in this world. And like, we should all be aware of those and not, and as long as we're not, again, rewarding those folks for having those worldviews,
Yeah.
it becomes something that
Paying
we can
money
learn
to
about.
someone,
Yeah.
for them, right.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah.
difference. I think I totally agree.
Yeah.
At least at this point. I mean, I might learn something
Yeah.
that changes my mind, but I'm trying to retain
Which is
nerve
always good. Yeah. Always, we should all be in a mindset where it's like, this is my best answer right now. Right. And it's like, I can't think of anything that's going to make me change my mind, but I'm open to something changing my
Right.
mind. I just need to hear it or see it or something. Yeah. All right.
And this
So
is
moving on down the line.
Eric
Yep.
Cooper, who was in
Ah.
chat. I don't know if she still is.
Yes.
Shadowwind.
She may still be.
She illustrated that arc, which is
Beautiful.
It's called
Yeah.
GM Oh No.
it's GM Oh No, and it takes place in San Montoville, where everything has been taken over by monster plants. And
Right.
it's very fun. It's very, very
They've
fun.
been GMO'd to heck and back.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, and we're
And
coming
then
down
we have
on
cheese
to
dino. Because, sometimes you need to ride a cheese dino into battle, right?
With a giant kid knife.
So it's a cheddar raptor,
yes.
and he's wielding Excalibur, the mighty famed sword.
Excalibur. No,
Yeah.
well, see, brie, so it's not that sharp because it's only cut in brie. Huh?
I mean, it doesn't need to be if you're Excalibur.
Okay. All right. I'll let it slide. I'm trying to come up with some
Planet
sort
Dearth.
of related weapon pun to say it couldn't go up against that, but I can't think of anything. No, nothing. Sorry. I bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
That joke was good, but it could have been gooder.
Here we go.
All right. And then we have, this is a return to Castle Big Mart. And Steve Myers, the same penciler and inker, illustrated this arc, who also illustrated Castle Big Mart. But this is now, instead of being colored by Whitney Cook, is being colored by Henry Virtuoso. I'm a really big fan of Henry's coloring. I'm also equally a big fan of Whitney's coloring. She just wasn't available when we set out to put our team together for this arc. She's booked up on her own projects and a few other things going on.
I like that there are so many signs that say no zombies, as if the zombies are going to read the signs and be like, actually,
right.
Turn it right back around. Never mind, guys.
I should.
They look serious. We better go.
Right. You always have that. No, I'm that zombie that if I step out of line, I'm always caught. I'm not going to do it, man.
Yeah.
Right?
No, man. I can't afford another headshot.
All right, and the theme song. Shall we listen to the theme song?
If you'd like to. It's freaking awesome. It's one of my favorite songs ever.
It was dark in the dead of night. All was calm on the farm till he saw a sight. An evil figure getting bigger. It began to creep. Now it was up to the hero in the widow's feet. Call Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy. Gotta save the world, but he don't know how. Zombies are ghosts and unholy cow. Perilous ruin, dangers ahead. Will he stay alive or become undead? Town full of hordes, better watch where your drinks at. Stuck in the city with a musk and a street rat. Join in a ride when it all goes awry. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Oh, Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy. Call Mr. Guy.
Very nice.
Love it. I love it.
Fun.
And
It's
it
very
just pleases me to watch Spooky as the visualizer bounce with the beat.
Yes. It has this very Monster Mash feeling, like a very, very modern Monster Mash kind of
Yeah.
thing. Very much,
Oh, yeah.
very much more lively version. Yeah.
Yeah, we went with a couple of references for David when he was working on that. I think Monster Mash might have been one of them. And then there was a couple of cartoons. I think it was also some of those 90s movie bops. Every movie had its
the Addams Family rap.
yeah,
That's
there was
a good
the
one.
Addams Family,
Remember that?
the Turtle Power, and Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
They all just had those awesome theme songs that were
Yes.
everywhere on every.
There's even actually a shout out to the Ghostbusters song in this song.
Yeah.
So.
Who are you gonna call Ghostbuster? No, call Mr. Guy.
Supposed to make me feel good.
Yeah, he doesn't say that.
There's one other song. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember it. I'm like scrolling through my Spotify, seeing if I could find it. I can't. I don't think in time. But I will. Yeah, I'll message you guys what that song is. But there's one other very like 70s Halloweeny theme thing. You always hear it on Halloween, and I'm like, oh, this was giving me so many shades of that. But I'm blanking. I'm blanking. So
Huh.
we'll come back to it.
Ooh, that's
Oh,
kind
I
of
can't wait. Yeah,
Huh.
awesome.
If anyone watching can figure it out, let us know.
All right, so Mr. Guy, Zombie Hunter. Here are the artists kind of going through each act, and then of course the cover artist right here for the first anthology. Jayel, of course, did the intro, and here is Catfish Cat, EF Cats.
KF Catfish.
So
With
it's
an ostentatious
Catfish.
mustache.
There we go.
the
Thank you.
first
Yes.
KF always stands for something different. So
Yes,
it'll be like,
you say it. You say it. Oh, you say that's right. It's different every time.
every
Right.
time it's something different. That's part of the running gag with him.
I kind of like what was it, Kraken fighting or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, Kraken Fighter, Catfish. I got when we were doing fulfillment for Pack 4, I put in a little picture of him holding boxes, and it's campaign fulfillment Catfish, and a campaign with a K though, obviously.
Beautiful. Just
Walter
kind of,
Oscar
I'll go
art.
kind of a slow scroll just so everyone can see the names and the styles and kind of
Yeah,
get a
Walter
sense
is
of what you're getting with each of these.
Amazing.
Yeah, Walter's arc was a lot of John Woo, Bruce Lee in the Old
Mhm.
West kind of feel.
A little bit of like Dust Till Dawn kind of
Mhm.
references in there.
Yeah. Robert Rodriguez. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Diana Camaro's was just like straight up hack and slash your way through a zombie horde.
Mhm.
So much fun.
And she
I just
definitely
love
had
her
fun
style.
with that.
Yeah. She put herself and her girlfriend both in the
It was
zombie
awesome.
horde as well.
Oh, cute.
And
All
then
right.
And then
Jason
Jace also
Jace.
had a lot of fun. That was great.
Yeah. With a slightly Resident Evil style arc.
Parasol
very
Laboratories. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. We were talking about it and sharing reference back and forth, and trying to figure out what visual bits to go with the plot points, and we had a blast working on that.
Beautiful.
And
Then we've
Stevie
got-
Ray Drawn did the cover for
An
issue
amazing
2.
cover.
Yeah. The lighting just mwah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
There we go. Kraken Fighter Catfish. That intro is just so like adorable, and seeing Catfish
Uh-huh.
as like even cuter than when I was a kid drawing him is just like like it's just so cute. I love it.
And I think this is where you say Kraken Fighter.
Yeah.
Catfish. Where he, she, whatever. He
I
kind of
think
has a
that's always in
mustache in
flux
the
too.
first one. Yeah.
Yeah, but
who
it's
knows?
always in flux. They're fluid.
It's always in flux.
Yeah.
Their name's always changing. Like it's just an
Yeah.
8-year-old's imagination character,
Yep.
And then James
And
Brawling's
James
arc.
did an awesome job. That whole arc was traditionally done, which
Yeah.
I think most of these.
I can see it.
are
I can see it.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, ink washes and like really neat.
Yeah, and that's the Circles of Heck arc.
Yeah.
Where they meet the big D. at
The
the end.
big D.
Daniel Hooker's arc, Midnight's Bayou, we get to explore a zombie haunted swamp and
So
meet a
much
very
fun.
cranky Orisha in the depths of the swamp.
Yes. And the coconut, the demon coconut, or whatever you call it, that then becomes part of the arm. I did kind of like that. Spooky was jealous and was not exactly happy that this was happening.
Yeah.
Sassy Spooky.
Yeah.
Sassy.
And then Michael Abstracto's arc is where we venture into void space to explore some Lovecraftian ideas and also get very comfortable with aspic.
Yeah, we really
Yes.
start introducing the aspect here.
Yes, you mentioned that on our very first live stream together. You were talking about Jayel's obsession with aspic, and I was like,
Yeah.
Of course, this is in here.
Yes. There will be more. Spoilers. There will be more aspic.
And anyone
I'll see it
know
in
what
just a moment.
aspic is? I had to Google it myself on that first live stream way back when. So usually don't spare yourself.
Just don't.
Don't even look
You
at pictures of it. It's ugh.
And then Necromantic closes out issue 2 with a really fun sort of all things crawling around in a dungeon.
Yeah,
adventure.
definitely dungeon crawler. Kind of a little bit of like Zelda, a little bit of like Indiana Jones kind of vibe to it. Had a lot of fun with that one, for sure. And there's mini golf, of course.
Why not?
Just why not? Yeah, so this is the first arc by Steve Myers for Castle Big Mart. Castle Big Mart was a song that I wrote sometime around like 2000. I want to say like 5 or 6 or something. And it was a poem, and then I turned it into a song, and then I turned that song into a comic. And it was just really
And
fun.
now it's in Mr. Guy.
Now it's in Mr. Guy.
Yeah.
There you go. Benjamin
And
Morris,
then-
of course.
Dun, 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 the new stuff. Here's Benjamin Morris's awesome cover. Super cheesy. I just can't wait to hold that in my hands.
It's gonna look so good.
The
Don't need it.
super cheesy cover.
Super cheesy.
And then we have an intro and an outro in the 3rd issue of
Yeah.
Mr. Guy by
Aniku
Eniko.
Makes sense.
crushed it.
Yeah.
The coloring is sick.
Yeah, it's a really fun little
Beautiful.
story that Jayel wrote that incorporates some of our other characters as well. And then we have
Beautiful.
2 bonus comics in this issue.
Another
And the
catfish.
Aspidemic
Oh.
is the first.
So we have the intro, which features catfish, and then goes right into the Aspidemic, which is about the time that catfish saved the world from an
From
aspidemic.
Aspidemic.
Exactly what you would think, you know. And so that's Maestro Abstracto also did the Lovecraft arc, so that's
Yeah.
his reprise, but this time
He's really good at making very shiny aspects. So we
Yeah,
had to call him
very
that.
fun.
So you're like, we need to go to him if
Right,
we're doing
hey, remember
anything
when I had
aspect.
you draw that
Yeah.
aspect? You want to do it again?
Fine.
Fine.
Then in Arc 9,
Shadow End again.
GMO No, we go deep into what could possibly go wrong with GMOs.
Deep into San Montoville.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That arc is just, yeah, there's a lot of
so much
Resident
fun.
Evil, a lot of like, you know, I mean, yeah, just all the video games, all like the horror zombie video games, that kind of thing.
And the
But
thing.
then, yeah, and the thing. But then it's kind of like softened because it's silly and it's cute, you know, like there's that taking it back from being like straight horror and making it like the
Right.
lighter side, you
Mhm.
know.
Right.
Apparently, did you know the original ending for the Little Shop of Horror was meant to be that all the Audrey 2s take over and are just like rampaging like kaiju and eating everything? That was like
No.
originally how it was supposed to end.
Focus
So it
group.
was going to become like what, Day of the Triffids, right? That's that
Yeah,
story where
yeah.
the plants all
The
take
focus
over
Day of
everything.
the
Okay.
Audreys.
The focus groups were
Yeah.
like, no, it can't end like that. So they changed the
too dark.
ending and we're like, all right, fine. Yeah. So, you know, there's a
Oh,
lot of
cute.
like little shop in there and
Yeah.
things like that, you know. It
Beautiful.
was very fun.
Feed me, Mr. Guy.
And then Kale, who's here in chat. Now this arc goes right into some of those big like pop culture touchstones like we were mentioning earlier. You know, Independence Day, Aliens, Predator,
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Firefly,
Mhm.
like yeah, it's juicy and very fun.
Oh, heck, at me.
Beautiful.
Oh heck, at me. And Kale actually helped me a lot with the writing there too. I always try to, when I send a script to an artist, say like, hey, let's review
Mhm.
it. Let's talk about it. If you have any ideas or questions or problems, anything's too hard to draw or whatever, you know, like we'll work it out. And Kale like really stepped up, and I was like, all right, I'm putting you in as a script consultant for this. That's a lot of extra work. So I was really
beautiful.
appreciative.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that you can recognize when when that line has been crossed, right? When you're
yeah.
like, okay, you're contributing too much. I got to give you another credit. Yeah. All right.
CR Florence does the arc that basically is like Lawnmower Man, Johnny Mnemonic, Terminator, Matrix, like all that stuff. So very, very Matrix. It's, again, all the like really well loved pop culture touchstones, but I kind of group them together. So the last one's all the alien stuff. This one's all the tech stuff. And then the last arc is The Last Place. That is going back to Castle Big Mart. Well, this is Mr. Guy stumbling across Castle Big Mart and what that ends up doing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Full circle.
We will definitely make sure to get you a copy when this is out.
Yeah. I can't wait to see them all next to each other.
Yeah. It's gonna be so
I know, right? Feels like these were I mean, three anthologies. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get them all together. So when did you do the first one? How long has it been to get to this finale?
I want to say 2018
is when you started working on it, but
when did we publish it?
I think it was 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I think it was. Yeah.
Okay. So 2 years of percolation and then essentially 3 to 4 years of pumping them out.
Yeah.
So I would say each one, because it was like 2 years for Mr. Guy 1, and then like 2 years for Mr. Guy 2, and then like 2 years for Mr. Guy 3. So these have all been kind of 2-year projects.
Beautiful.
2 years is a long time to work on something,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Tell
and congrats on making it to the finish line.
They were in it for 17 heckin' years.
We got some really nice glowing praise there. I'm surprised with all what people have had to say about Mr. Guy. I'm like, how is this not already funded?
Not gotten that $1.
Always.
Wild.
Always. We still haven't gotten the $1?
No, we still haven't gotten the $1. No. We're still at $14.99.
I'm gonna refresh.
Guys, just go give it. You don't have to take no rewards. Just drop $1 for fuck's sake. Drop $2 just for a buffer. Just for a buffer. Get us $1 over.
And then
oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Do you have lots of? I thought there would be like a handful, and I'm like, nope, it keeps going.
But they're just so good. Like there was such good
Mr. Guy
comments,
really like it.
And I mean, we just got such good feedback. I was like, I have to include that, like.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
Yes.
Anishi Press gets around.
Or wine and ...
Yeah, wine and ...
We gotta. Yeah.
Wine and ellipsis.
We'll see. Do the I'll have to send you the wine and comics pairing show so you can add that, and then the wine and when that time comes, then you get to So you gotta stretch it as far as it'll go, right?
Yeah, totally.
I didn't create a whole new brand for people not to take advantage of it. All right, beautiful. Yes, why trust us? They've done a lot of these, as we saw in the video up above. This will be their 19th. Successfully funded once it is successfully funded, and they get a project we love. And where's the tree thingy? We're green.
Yeah.
1 tree planted. So yes, committed to making the world. So these are all the many ways in which they're green, and then the 1 tree planted for every single backer. Back. Yep. With 1 tree planted. So this, I didn't notice this, I think, until the second time you were on the show. And then that blew me away. I was like, dude, I need to look into that for my own campaigns when they happen. Awesome.
Yeah, and
Vaya
anytime
yes.
you have a campaign coming up, we'll tell you what we know
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Big hard
Absolutely. It's coming. I gotta get this podcast out the door.
Yep.
Then it will be time to refocus on that. But
Right. One thing at a time.
one thing at a time. All right. So guys, $7 for Act 3 digital. So that'll get us $6 over 1,500. You know, I'm just saying, if you want the PDF.
Mhm.
So, and thanks on the website, and thanks in the book. So, hey, digital catch-up, if you've never gotten any of these, get all 3 for $21, so $7 each. Do the math. That makes sense.
You read them digitally, right? How'd you feel
Yes.
about that experience? That worked for you perfectly?
I read most things digitally these days. So yes, I'm a huge believer. If you are not a digital reader yet, like anything, it's like any new technology. It takes a little bit of time to adjust and get used to it, to find the device you like best, to find the reader you like best, to find, your navigation through that, and how everything is an adjustment. But if you can get through I didn't even take me long. So I started reading digitally mostly because this was many years, it was pre-pandemic. But I was in a relationship at the time. So she would always fall asleep long before I did. But I couldn't have light on to keep reading. So I was like, oh, fuck it. And she would always fall asleep on my shoulder. So I couldn't move and I couldn't leave to go anywhere. So I was like, well, let me find a way to get everything I want to read on my phone. And it's just to this day, I still do not read on tablets or my laptop. I prefer my phone now. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
I prefer because I'm so good
Got quick
at
with the zoom out
navigating
unit.
on it.
Yeah.
That I do it without thinking about it. And I'm like, I like this better than, the and the tablet and whatnot. It's either a little too big or a little too little, but I still have to, but then it's harder. You can't just move it with your fingers and shit like that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I've gotten so used to my phone. I just like it. I read novels on my phone. I read most of my comics on my phone. I consume from manga to oversized European comics on my phone. I've gotten used to all of it. So it's just an adjustment period. I love it personally. I'm a big believer.
Huh.
We do have quick reading digital but hurts your eyes, I'm assuming, but I found a PDF reader speaker that helps. Oh yeah, speaker. There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, the eyes for me, one, you can do the Kindle, whatever they call that thing, the Paperlight thing, where it's like it tries to replicate the look of paper and light bouncing off paper rather than a back thing. And you can also I do dark mode on my phone, which is less light. It might not be enough depending on how sensitive your eyes are, but check your devices. And if there's a quote unquote dark mode on it, that's what you want, because it is the easier on the eyes. It's the kind of light that also doesn't, they've done studies where light from devices can make you an insomniac. Like it keeps you up too late and you can't fall asleep later. And dark mode is the kind of light. Yeah, dark mode supposedly is the kind of light that doesn't do that to you. So something to look into there as well. All right. Moving on. Oh, digital deluxe, of course. So all the deluxe versions of the PDFs for $32 grand total. And I'm assuming and then you also get the theme song, digital Mr. Guy Cube Craft toy. The thing I'm assuming that's the thing you cut out, right, and assemble the toy.
So it's like a flat. You could print it and then
right,
make your own little
beautiful
Mr. Guy cube.
Beautiful Tarmux Origins digital. Enter the Oneshi verse, which I'm assuming is a big sampler platter of all the Oneshi stuff in digital. Gorgeous. And print Act 3. Don't forget, this is 60 pages, guys. This is some people would call that a graphic novel. $24.
Yeah.
It's a mini graphic novel to a full graphic novel. I mean, it certainly ain't a single issue. So,
lots of bonus art.
And lots of bonus art. And that's going to come with also the digital version as well. The tree planted in your honor. Personalized thank you. All right. You have free shipping. So that $24 includes the shipping in the United States.
Yeah.
Important thing to do there. And print catch up, all 3 of them for $54. So just a tiny bit over. So that's a good deal.
Hmm. Yeah, plus all
That's
the digital
awesome. So
goodies.
54 on that guy.
Yeah.
Yep. And everything.
And we
Beautiful.
also
Print
have
deluxe.
an early bird.
Yeah, that's not on the page, but
Oh.
it's on the sidebar.
Yeah.
But it's
Ah.
closes
Because
what?
it'll close, I think, tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
So we didn't put it on the page, but it is in there.
Okay, right. Let's see if we. There it is. Print ketchup extra early bird. Beautiful. And it's this one also. That's print ketchup normal, and then the early bird extra. So it comes with a lot of extra items, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah, a bunch
Plus
of
one more.
stickers, postcards, like goodies like that, all in a little swag pack for you.
Beautiful. And then the deluxe versions of everything in print. And then Tarmux Trove. And I've looked at this. So I'm still waiting on my pack, the pack number 4. Because I got the Tarmux coffee for that one. I upgraded just to try this Tarmux coffee. I've got to do it.
Yes.
But yes, you can actually get light or dark roasted beans branded on this Tarmux, and you guys partnered with a third party, really good coffee sourcer to get these coffees, to get the actual beans for this.
Fantastically sourced. Direct trade with a small family-owned farm, so it's really cool.
Amazing.
Super yummy.
Amazing. The full swag pack, everything in digital. I mean, come on. There we go.
And a bunch of extra prints, it's nice.
Beautiful. And then Spooky's Secret Stash. Okay. Now this is probably nope, there's one more.
Nope.
Okay, 2
That's
more.
it. That's Mr. Guy's Garage. Is basically just everything that we had that was even just relevant, This is what Mr. Guy is.
Take our stuff, please.
Yeah. This is like if you want like everything. I mean, that's not our full catalog, but it's close.
Right.
If we put our full catalog on there, it would be pretty absurd.
Pretty silly.
Yeah.
Well, the Spooky Secret Stash at $249. I'll just leave this on screen for a moment. And then when people watch this as a recording, they can pause the screen. You can see everything that's right there. And then Mr. Guy's Garage. It's everything above plus all that fun stuff. All right. There you go. Of course, where's everything going? Very cute. Processing fees, production, postage. You guys probably know all this stuff, but if you don't, you can come see the breakdown of where all the money's going and the schedules. So we're looking at about August to September, end of August to end of September, during that 30-day period for actually getting the physical rewards in your hands, and digital will happen more towards end of July to mid-August, right before everything starts shipping out. Yeah. But usually usually people wait until they have the physical books in hand and then release digital rewards. So people aren't waiting for the digital. They don't want digital people to just have it, and then when the physical guys got to wait months for everything to get printed. All right, cool. Any last thing you want to mention about the campaign?
It's fun. We're going to have a lot of unlocks as we go. So when we hit certain milestones with either, backer count or funding, we're going to unlock cool, fun new add-ons and bonus rewards that we're going to put in everybody's basket for them. So, stay tuned. We've got a lot more to come.
Beautiful. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen right there.
Thanks so much for taking the time to go through that whole thing. That was a lot.
It's all. I'm with you guys especially. I'm like, I know what I'm in for. I know your back catalog. I know what we're doing here. I'm I'm coming prepared. All right, so it is time to reveal what we have paired with these bad boys. So here's the interesting thing. I was reading, Dallas texted me what he paired with you. Dallas is my co-host. For anyone who's watching the show and doesn't know, he couldn't make it today. He got apparently quite ill right before the show in ways that he was not going to be able to be on camera and be right here today. So he was like, I was like, all right, text me when you can. I'm sure we'll babble long enough that you'll be able to get it to me. He did. So here's the interesting thing. His choice, and I'm going to read this out here. His choice and my backup choice are almost exactly the same, and this almost never happens. We have never chosen the same thing. It's not the same brand, but it's essentially the same kind of wine. So I'm going to read his here for a minute. His text to me. He says, I knew I wanted a deep, gritty red. In this case, I imagined the wine that our main character would want to keep in his satchel for those downtimes or moments when he needs a little courage. The wine opens up very floral-y, then smacks in the mouth with that jammy blackberry. Then eventually you get some cacao, some cocoa, sorry, not cacao, some cocoa or coffee, even some black pepper that wakes you up a bit. Tannically speaking, it's very fine, but also velvety and satisfying. I chose the Tours Celeste Crianza 2019 Tempranillo. This is from Spain. It's a Spanish from the Ribera del Duero Tempranillo 2019. For those not in the know, Tempranillo is basically what most Rioja from Spain is made out of. It's the primary grain in most Riojas. Ribera del Duero is a different section of Spain. The Tempranillo is also kind of the star of, but it does come out a little different. It's usually a little more fruit forward, a little heavier. It's a hotter climate than the Rioja region. So it tends to you just get something a little more decadent. Riojas tend to be very middle of the road, very even. You just get like, it's very mellow. It's very smooth. Riojas tend not to have a lot of punch to them. Ribera del Duero Tempranillos, on the other hand, you got punch. You get those tannins a little bit more. You get this fruitiness. It's almost like a New World California wine. You get this sort of like pepperiness and spiciness to it. My backup wine, and the reason I have a backup is because my main wine is actually really hard to get. So this is the one that's easy to get.
Okay.
And the easy to get one is another Tempranillo from Spain that is not a Rioja. And it is from the Navarra region. I'm going to hold it up here. This is the 1864 Olite Navarra Reserva 2016 Reserva. It's a Reserva, which means they hold it back longer. So it is an older wine. It's 2016. Yeah. Both of these wines go for about $19.99, around $20 a bottle. Right now, if you have a grocery outlet near you, I got this for $6.99 at a grocery outlet, where they seem to have it in stock, and they are selling it for rock bottom prices. I highly recommend it. It is worth it for $19.99. It is beyond worth it for $6.99. Grocery outlet is one of those places where it depends on where you're located. Every grocery outlet has a little bit of a different stock. But they do share a lot as well. So look for this. If you have like Google grocery outlets, see if you have one near you. If so, look for this for those rock bottom prices, because holy shit, is it worth it? Mine, Navarra is just outside of Rioja. It's like literally just outside the borders. It's going to be not quite as decadent as something from Ribera del Duero, but similarly, it's a little spicier, jammier. It's just got that more fruit forwardness. And I agree with Dallas's reasoning in terms of, these stories, for all their being embedded within sort of the horror world and the fantasy, and really more horror than fantasy, but some fantasy as well, like you are just having a lot of fun with these stories, right? And everyone who's reading it is just having a lot of fun with it. So I'm like, okay, this is not a white or a rosé. Like you don't need the acidity, you don't need the lightness, you don't need the white stone fruits. You want the jam, you want the pepper, you want all those things that are just like, this is a celebration, this is a good time. That's what these stories are about. So I think we both went for wines that were all about that. And I'm kind of amazed because, again, we have never chosen wines this close to each other in the history of this show.
So specific, too. Like,
exactly.
We could have chosen wines from wildly different regions that have some like overlap.
Yes, but which is normally what we do a little bit. Right. If we ever have overlap, they're like, oh, we're thinking the same thing, but we went there. I mean, we have the whole world at our fingertips with wine, which is part of the problem. It's so hard to come this close. And the fact that we did was amazing. But my number one choice, And this also goes into the fact that this was an artthology/anthology, which is all these different styles and all these different, so a little bit of a different feel with every story, right? It's like this medley of things going on within each book. And when you take the whole trilogy together, it's an ultimate medley of just all these different things. And one of my favorite things to do with anthologies, if I can find one, and if I can think of one that matches it, is something called a field blend. And a field blend, I'll explain it. Don't worry. A field blend is something. So first, to explain this, I'm going to reveal the wine. There is this very famous winery in Napa called Turley. Let me see if I can get that on screen here. Right. And this is a Petite Syrah from something called the Library Vineyard.
Nice.
Now, Turley is a fairly exclusive winery. It's not that hard to get their wines ultimately, but you have to get on a waiting list is the problem. Okay. Wow. So all you do to get on their waiting list, though, is you go to their website, you submit your email, and you wait. And it took me about 6 months. And then 6 months later, they were like, you're in. We start offering you quarterly. Like every time we release new wines, you're able to buy them. You don't have to. You never have to. You just are able to at that point, but you have to wait. And yes, good night, Yuki. So because that's hard to get, and this particular library vineyard wine, it's not cheap. Let's put it that way. I think this runs something like $60 or $70 a bottle. So it's like it's up there in price, but it is extra perfect. It is so perfect, and here's the reason why. Not only it's a Petite Syrah, so it is super fruity, jammy, and then all those wonderful dark, like all the herbaceousness and the leather and the tobacco and the pepper, and it's dense and it's wonderful. But the Library Vineyard, it is called the Library Vineyard because it is actually in the back lot of a library called the St. Helena Library in Napa. This vineyard was planted behind it. And the Library Vineyard is, when they found it, it is predominantly Petite Syrah, but it also has a huge assortment of other grapes randomly planted. Again, they kind of discovered this. It's kind of lost to history why all these grapes were planted there. But it is Petite Syrah, and then Pellerson and Syrah, which are the two parent grapes of Petite Syrah. They actually bred in the wild and created Petite Syrah. So not something that human beings meant to do, but it's just something that happened. And then Cinsault, Alicante Boucher, Grand Noir, Carignan, Grenache, Zinfandel, Muscat Alexandria, Muscadel, something called the Burger grape, and the green Hungarian grape.
Something called the Burger
grape. A field blend is when you pick them, the Burger grape. And the field blend is when you pick them all together and just throw them in the same bottle.
Oh, wow.
And you're like, everything in this vineyard is fermenting together. And about four of those grapes were white grapes as well. So it's everything. It doesn't matter what it is. You're just like, everything in this vineyard, you are becoming a wine as a holistic. You are just what this vineyard is all together. They fermented together. They put it together. So it's not your standard Petite Syrah. It also has all this diorama of flavors that you are just entering this world of these multifaceted that are all in harmony together. Still predominantly Petite Syrah. It's still mostly what you want with this particular title, this particular anthology, but then it's just expressing itself from all these different grapes, all these different styles and voices all coming together in this kind of harmony. So I was like, motherfucker, yes, this is what is going to pair the best. So if you ever want to just submit your email on the Turley website, like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. You never have to buy anything, but you do have to wait before you're allowed to purchase anything. And then they just keep sending you the emails. I think they just always kind of keep an idea, like as people drop off the email list, they then let other people on. They never want too many to be on there, something, because they're not the biggest winery in the world. They only produce so much. But anyway, that's the pairings.
So I was thinking before the show that if I was going to pick a red to go with Mr. Guy, it would be a Syrah.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of fun.
Very close. Yep.
Yeah. On the same page.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
On the same page. See, normally that's as close as me and Dallas would ever come to anything. Sort of like, Sarah, and probably from wildly different places too. But anyway, so do you guys have, we didn't really discuss this time before having you come on this time, but as usual, if you have another book you want to shout out, this is the time to do it. Is there any other comics out there floating around that you guys would like to shout out?
You know, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I came up with a comic and a wine pairing for it, and now I can't remember what it is. I should have written it down. This is gonna bug me.
If you send it to me later, I'll at least put it in the description of the episode.
All right, yeah.
Down below.
Oh boy, that's frustrating. Like I very specifically was like, I need to have something ready for this, and then it just.
Oh, I've done that before.
I forgot about that part.
I've done that before.
Completely am unprepared.
I've done that where I've been prepping for an episode. I've had a wine in mind, like before we do the show. Thank God, I've never arrived at the show and like completely blanked on what the fuck I was supposed to pair with the comic. But I've been like, while I was reading it, I was like, ooh, that's perfect. Gone to bed and finished it the next day, and wait, what was perfect yesterday? And it's gone. I can't even remember what I had thought might have been perfect. So I can't even go find it to try it or anything. I'm just like, fuck, whatever that perfect thought was is gone. And I'm always have that nagging suspicion that whatever I ultimately wound up picking is not as perfect as whatever that first thought was.
So qualifying questions, can a series count, or does it have to be an individual? All right,
not at all.
Does rice wine count? Because I might go with like sake, and Yosagi Yojimbo.
Oh,
ooh, beautiful and unfiltered, 100%.
I do believe that Yosagi Yojimbo drinks gin, but
I did not remember that.
The wine theme, you know?
yeah. Where is he getting? Do they make gin in Japan? Where is he getting gin?
They do. There was both whiskey and gin were brought over pretty early on, and they started making it there.
Okay,
and
they planted some juniper bushes.
Thing, but
Weirdos.
Japanese gin is a whole thing.
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
Its whole own thing too. Like
right.
You can go in a little.
I'm sure they're crafting
Google that.
completely different kinds of cocktails with it. Yeah, that's great. The unfiltered, so the ones that have the cloudiness, like the actual grit in them, right?
Yeah,
the Nigori or whatever they call those. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I love those.
Oh, yeah, that is the best. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I've had some clean sakes, like really, really high-end sakes that kind of blow your mind by just how clean they are. Like you're like, holy cow! I didn't. But then you have to then you just start to think to yourself, you're like, but why is it so impressive that it tastes like spring water? You know, it's like there's so little bite that it's like on the one hand it's impressive, on the other hand you're like, I could just buy water and get kind of the same effect. Maybe I want something that challenges me a bit more than this. Yeah.
And I think also there's something about like, you know, it's got a more, I want to say foodular quality. Like it's kind of like savory, you know, when it's really like when it's you know, unfiltered and it's really just like dank and cloudy and strong, and it's got like an almost savory vibe. Otherwise, like you have ones that are kind of like on the almost like acrid and sweet side, and that's like not my jam. That's not my preference.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I think then there's also like the saline and but also kind of acrid, like that acidity, that clean acidity that always comes with that cleanness. But then the fogginess comes with like, that mushroomy funk, that umami funk that like gives you more to it all.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
That goes real well with a nice Yosagi Yojimbo comic and some fish, some clean fish, and like some rice, and I'm happy.
Beautiful. Beautiful, guys.
I know what we're doing. We're gonna go make some sushi and
I will let
freaking Speed Racer.
I will let you go to do both of those things. I think you should do it. Keep an eye out for the big news drop for the so the uncut episodes will be on. I will be dropping episodes on the Substack as well, and paid subscribers on the Substack which currently is going to be $5 a month or $50 for the year. Completely uncut episodes of the podcast will be available only to those people. So this first episode is 20 minutes longer. It's either an hour 20 or an hour 40. So much more discussion gets added to the uncut episodes. Every uncut episode will be at least 20 minutes longer. Possibly some will be like 30, 45 minutes. We might go far with it, depending on how blah, blah, blah we get and how much I'm like, okay, we're not keeping the general audience's attention with this. But then anyone who wants to go into the deep dive, like here's all the weird stuff we went off on. So that'll be available there, and interactive polls and bonus content and a whole bunch of stuff will be happening on the Substack, but that's where it goes. But you can find everything here on this YouTube channel for those watching. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We look forward. We still have 2 more live streams to go before this is all said and done. It's been amazing, Jayel and Lynsey, having you on 3 times.
Thank you so much.
Love all your stuff.
So much fun.
Love your books. Absolutely. And this won't be the last, really, ultimately. But even though we're kind of closing this chapter of the wine and comic stuff. But in any event, folks, good night for now. We will see you next time. Get them before the end of tonight. 1,500. Come on. Like just I know my mouth to God's ears, right? Like, let's go. Let's make it happen. All right. Good night, everybody. We will catch you next time. Next week, we have Stephen Prince on with his Monster Matador for one final time as well. And then just our final epic final issue show where me and a couple creators will be bringing on our favorite final issues of comic series and pairing a wine with it. So that'll be how we're closing this whole thing. All right. Good night for now. We will